got more culture war stuff, people. It's a big deal. Apparently, Dr. Seuss is being canceled by none other than Dr. Seuss Enterprises. Cancel culture, cancel culture, cancel culture. This is such a non-story, but I need to cover it just to clear the bases and how dumb this is. So, if you didn't know, recently Dr. Seuss Enterprises decided that they weren't going to publish 6 books any longer because of racial portrayals and how they're shown toward kids. And there are studies to say that racial biases are formed at a very early age. And so after years of deliberation and discussion and paneling, the company itself decided it was no longer going to start publishing these books. I don't see the big deal. I don't get it. But anyway, for this video, I'm going to be citing 4 different articles. One from the Associated Press, another one from the BBC. The Associated Press one, is called 6 Dr. Seuss books won't be published for racist images. The BBC article is the surprisingly radical politics of Dr. Seuss. That guy was, from what I read, he was pretty left, even with his racial depictions, but unfortunately it's a product of his time. CNN, Dr. Seuss, 6 books won't be published anymore because they portray people in hurtful and wrong ways. That's pretty spot on. And then the last one from NPR, which is going to be called Dr. Seuss Books Can Be Racist. This is from 2019. Dr. Seuss books can be racist, but students keep reading them. And it cites a study about these racial biases that I'm going to talk about in this video. But I'm going to start with this Associated Press article. So, again, the Associated Press article is 6 Dr. Seuss books won't be published for racist images. Again, this was the company's decision. Why do you care? What's this like, oh, censorship? It would be one thing if the government intervened and said, like, no, these books can't be published, they need to all be burnt. That'd be a different story. However, this is a company decision. And while I don't think it matters in the long run, like, who cares that they made this decision after years of deliberation? So the Associated Press article starts with, quote, quoting the Dr. Seuss Enterprises, quote, "These books portray people in ways that are hurting and wrong," Dr. Seuss Enterprises told the Associated Press in a statement that coincided with the late author and illustrator's birthday. "Ceasing sales of these books is only part of our commitment and our broader plan to ensure Dr. Seuss Enterprises catalog represents and supports all communities and families," it said. I don't see the problem, because a lot of the stuff in those books are just like really, I wouldn't even say they're subtle. They're pretty big stereotypes, like black people being portrayed as gorillas. I think one of the books, it had a man who was supposed to be depicted as Chinese, wearing Japanese shoes and carrying a gun to associate dominance. Now, in the 1940s, I gotta say, Dr. Seuss had some pretty cringe takes on the Japanese, especially, World War II was going on. He did a lot of publishing for left news outlets at that time. And some of it's pretty cringe, honestly. It's the company's decision. The government isn't making the decision for them. But if you want to know which 6 books, well, take a minute to guess which books they are. I'm sure you won't be able to guess them, because I don't know how many people are familiar with "And to Think That I Saw It on Mulberry Street," or "If I Ran the Zoo," or "McElligot's Pool," or "On Beyond Zebra," or "Scrambled Egg Soup," or "The Cat's Quizzer." Now, on that list for many years has been "The Cat in the Hat," but even then, it's one of the most popular books that can actually be sufficiently taught, along with "How the Grinch Stole Christmas." Those are some of the most popular books that Dr. Seuss ever published, and in my opinion, they could be taught appropriately. But a lot of these deliberations also come down to teachers and students and many people who are in academia that are teaching these books. But to continue on with the Associated Press, quote, the decision to cease publication and sales of the books was made last year after months of discussion. The company, which was founded by Seuss's family, told Associated Press. Dr. Seuss Enterprises listened and took feedback from our audiences, including teachers, academics, and specialists in the field as part of our review process. We then worked with a panel of experts, including educators, to review our catalog of titles, it said. So it wasn't like a random decision. It wasn't like, oh my God, the left is attacking us and we're being canceled. It's the left. It's the SJWs. It's like from academic fields. Like they're not being stupid about this. They're actually being very careful about what they're publishing and what they choose not to publish. And they have their reasons for it. It's not like these books are going out of circulation. Like they're still going to exist in the market. They're still going to be free to read online if you choose to read them. I'm sure many people are going to make these books circulate because of the reaction to it. It's been very negative on the internet when you have dumbasses like Ben Shapiro reacting to it, but I'll get to that later. But even other publishers have been really receptive to this. For instance, Random House children's books. They issued a brief statement on Tuesday. They said, quote, we respect the decision of Dr. Seuss Enterprises and the work of the panel that reviewed this content last year and their recommendation. Like, this is the company's recommendation. I don't get it. I've seen a lot of people online criticizing this decision as if they're being canceled, all the while making the comparison to that song WAP, Wet Ass Pussy, because wet ass pussy, that's been taught to kids. Okay. School districts across the country have also moved away from Dr. Seuss, prompting London County, Virginia schools just outside Washington, D.C. to douse rumors last month that they were banning the books entirely. So this is a rumor that was circulating around 3 days ago. They've been denied. Whether or not those are true, that's completely irrelevant. They're not taking the time to absolutely remove the books as much as they're not prioritizing educating kids on it. And then later in the same article, it says, research in recent years has revealed strong racial undertones in many books written and illustrated by Dr. Seuss, the school district said in a statement. Now, on that research, I'm going to get into that later again. I'm going to quote that from the NPR article. They say, but Associated Press says, oh, no. They quote Ben Shapiro, who says, We've now got foundations books burning, and the authors to whom they are dedicated. Well done, everyone. Conservative commentator and author Ben Shapiro tweeted. Others approved of the decision, though. The books we share with our children matter. Books shape their worldview and tell them how to relate to the people, places, and ideas around them. As grown-ups, we have time to examine the worldview we are creating for our children, including carefully re-examining our favorites. Rebecca Fitzsimmons, an assistant teaching professor at Carnegie Mellon University, tweeted. I don't see the big deal. And you know what? I would even argue that if Dr. Seuss were still around today, like he passed away in 1991, he was fairly progressive for his time with some cringe takes. We all have cringe takes in our lives. Like, this is nothing new. But in his later life, for instance, let's see. One of the artists that really defends him is Art Spiegelman. He's the author and illustrator of the graphic novel Mouse, Parts 1 and 2, which is one of the most amazing graphic novels I've ever read in my life. And a lot of the racial tones are very much trying to depict what's going on at the time, but sometimes it's on the point of offensive. However, in stories like Yertle the Turtle and other stories, Yertle the Turtle was supposed to be depicted having a Hitler mustache. And you can see by the cover on Yertle the Turtle is he's standing on top of all the other turtles. A lot of his stuff was very much anti-Nazi. One of them has a cow with a swastika right under its neck. And the quote is, the head eats, the rest gets milked. And it has the name of other countries that have been taken over by Nazi Germany at the time. He had very negative depictions of Nazi Germany. Unfortunately, he had some anti-Semitic tones in some of his books. And some comics at the time. One of his most cringy comics that I'm looking at now is Waiting for the Signal from Home, and it has a bunch of Japanese in California going to the Honorable Fifth Column and depicting them carrying TNT and walking away. In later years, Dr. Seuss would denounce these comics that he made. In the modern day, they would be called cringe in his eyes. I'm going to put the BBC article in the description because this is very important to see and really get an understanding of who Dr. Seuss was. In fact, he was a big proponent of nature, and you can see that through his book called The Lorax. Now, fun fact, Dr. Seuss, aka Theodore Geisel, he was a resident in San Diego, and oftentimes he would go to places such as what's now called the San Diego's Wildlife Alliance's Safari Park, or San Diego Zoo Safari Park, or formerly the Wild Animal Park. He checked out a lot of the gardens there, and it said that he had a lot of inspiration from his artwork from the Lorax, but also the Lorax depicts being for nature. Like, he had a lot of progressive messages for his time. And it's really important to keep that in mind because, again, I will argue that he would be 100% for this decision that Dr. Seuss Enterprises is making. And it's not like they're doing it in ill will. Like, that's what I don't understand with reactionaries online. They think it's like ill will, censorship. It just doesn't make much sense to me. But moving on, let's go to the CNN article. They also talk about a lot of his children's literature and what it depicts, but let's get to, let me see, forgive me for one moment. The end of the article, actually. It says, quote, research in recent years has revealed strong racial undertones in many books written and illustrated by Dr. Seuss. I said that earlier, actually. But it's important to understand because a lot of what people are arguing is like cancel culture and all this stuff. But books that have racial undertones or overtly have racist depictions in order to make a message. For instance, you have Mark Twain's The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, where the N-word is used ad nauseum. But if you actually understand the context of that book, you could see the depiction between how Huck uses it and how his father uses it. Two very different tones. Huck is using it because that's all he's heard all his life, while his dad uses it out of animosity. While he becomes great friends with N-word Jim. I have that book. It's all to make a point. And it uses a lot of racial stereotypes. I mentioned Art Spiegelman earlier. Art Spiegelman in his graphic novel Mouse uses anthropomorphism. Jewish people are depicted as mice, Nazis are cats, Americans are dogs, the French are frogs, the Polish are pigs, stuff like that. It's just a lot of play in order to exemplify the time. But you can also see like these tones that Dr. Seuss uses aren't used to really show a message as much as it is to give a false depiction of an ethnicity or race. I finally want to get to the study that was referred to in NPR. So, quote, in a study published earlier this month, this is back in, let me look, actually, I'm sorry. This is February 26, 2019, in the article called Dr. Seuss Books Can Be Racist, but Students Keep Reading Them. So, there was a study that came out years ago. In a study published earlier this month in Research on Diversity in Youth Literature, researchers Katie Ishizuka, and Ramon Stevens found that only 2% of the human characters in Seuss's books were people of color. And all of those characters say they were depicted through racist caricatures. Those caricatures have a potent effect, even at an early age. Research shows that even at the age of 3, children begin to form racial biases, and by the age of 7, those biases become fixed. One of the reasons for that is the images and experiences that they're exposed to regarding marginalized groups and people of color. And so, Seuss's books being mainstream and being spread all over the world has large implications. Now, the company is aware of the implications that it has. Not to mention they're adapting to the market. Like, there's no way this story is going to be released with all the reaction it's getting, negative or positive, from conservatives. I'm not really even necessarily giving this like a positive outlook. I'm just more of like the why do you care sort of thing. Like, what does it matter? It's the company's decision, and obviously it's a good marketing ploy, honestly. I'm sure those books are going to be circulating again just because of this story. They're going to be getting a lot of money. It's going to be talked about a lot. And who cares? Like, I'm 100% convinced Theodore Geisel would have been okay with this decision. And they're making this decision because they think it's for the benefit of everyone else, according to them. I can only take their word for it. And they went through years of paneling, had to deal with years of people saying, like, hey, there's problems with these books, not going like, cancel Dr. Seuss. If you take the time to research Dr. Seuss, he had some pretty progressive politics for his time. I mean, his books are still going to be on the shelves. He's still going to be continuously talked about. He's really important for kids. Like, hell, I'd be surprised if anyone watching this video hasn't watched a Dr. Seuss video. I mean, just ask yourself, who cares? Why is this a big deal? Because it's not. You're going to see false equivalences everywhere. Like I said, you had the Wet Ass Pussy song being equivocated to Dr. Seuss books. Isn't that song about, like, women empowerment, too? Like, it's pretty vulgar, but it's supposed to be about women empowerment as far as I've been able to tell. So no matter what, like, these books are still going to exist. Right now, you could probably read them for free online if you really want to. Actually, you most likely can. And probably what's also going to happen, because this is usually what happens, is, at least in academics, teachers are going to be more aware as of how to properly teach these books. Like, a controversy that happened many, many years ago was with, like I said, Huckleberry Finn. They censored the N-word, and because they censored it, it kind of took away what the book was trying to exemplify in those racial undertones, being able to distinguish hostile undertones in comparison to non-hostile undertones, as in being a part of the culture and being aware that those words, such as the N-word, have very negative connotations and people aren't aware of it. So don't make a big deal of this. This is a really cringe issue. This is a big non-issue. There's bigger things to worry about, like, I don't know, getting an education without going into debt, or, I don't know, supporting the military-industrial complex as bombings in Syria happen under the Biden administration. And, I don't know, we're in the middle of a pandemic and people are worried about a company just deciding not to publish these books. Look, freaking Stephen King made the same decision from his 1998 book Rage, which depicts a man shooting up a school. When school shootings became prominent, Stephen King said, no, I'm not publishing this. I cannot in good morals do this. It's up for the publisher to decide. It's up for the author to decide. And again, I'm going to end it here. I'm going to repeat myself. I'm sure Theodore Geisel would have been totally okay with this decision.